So we are back again with another video, and today we're going to be doing a transfer news daily exclusive, as we are going to be talking everything about James Maddison and his potential move to Arsenal, which has heated up over the last days and weeks. And to discuss this move, we have got Nandez One on the channel. Say hello.
Hello.
So look, James Maddison, I want to discuss with you James Maddison's potential move to Arsenal, because this could be something that could happen. Now, when you heard about the rumors that were linking the player to Arsenal, what were your first opinions, and what did you make of his last season at Leicester?
I'm not gonna lie with you. As soon as I heard all of this news, I was ready on the phone just to mock all Arsenal fans. Ready. I think the problem we have with James Maddison is he's not a consistent performer, and that's the problem that we had. Of course, going into the end of last season before that, you saw what happened with top four. And I think with James Maddison, he's a quality player. He's proven himself a lot, and I mean a lot. But I just think Arsenal, that kind of move, like for a top player that we have, it's never going to be a lie that James Maddison has always been a top player for us. But making a move to Arsenal, a team that finished 8th when we finished 5th, a team that didn't win the FA Cup that same season, I know they won the season before that, but just a team that's just been downhill ever since. And I just think it's a bit kind of funny to an extent that Arsenal fans at that point, well, and we're talking about at that point, were thinking James Maddison would join to Arsenal.
Yeah, look, I think when the first rumors came out, it seemed as if it could be an ambitious move. That's what my first opinions were when I first heard it. But ever since then, the talks and the rumors have started heating up. Now, I wanna quickly tell all you guys where we are at with this move. Now, according, for all the Arsenal fans watching, you will know who the AFC Bell are, one of the most credible Arsenal sources out there, and they've suggested that Arsenal have appointed an intermediary by the names of Darren Robinson, who has engaged in said heart-pounding talks with his Leicester City counterparts about a number of possible combinations of an offer that would lure the Foxes to the table for an official peer-to-peer negotiations with Arsenal. Now, Darren Robinson is set to be close to Leicester City, and he has been appointed by Arsenal to complete a move for James Maddison. Now, the fact that Arsenal have paid money for an intermediary to complete the move for James Maddison tells me that Maddison would be very much open to move to Arsenal, and if Leicester and Arsenal were to agree a fee, he would move to Arsenal. What are your thoughts on that one?
I think that's another very interesting point. I think there's a lot of stuff there where it's assumptions more than kind of true things. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I think there have been reports from journalists of Leicester City who have said that at first there were kind of talks that he wouldn't mind going to London. Of course, you got Mason Mount there, Ben Chilwell, even some of his best friends, and I do think that even though London, of course, as a city, capital city of England, it looks a lot nicer than Leicester, of course. But I
Yeah.
do think, for me overall, I see James Maddison like. Let's talk about what Rob Tyne said. He's an LCFC journalist. Him and a few others got to go on a tour at Leicester City's new training ground, and I just feel like that kind of training ground is just something that. Why would you want to go to another club when you got that training ground, when you could be going there? It's literally your office. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, look, I think what tells me is that what I know is that Arsenal have pretty much agreed personal terms with James Maddison, and look, Arsenal wouldn't pay a guy to try and do the deal with Leicester if James Maddison never wanted to move to Arsenal. I firmly do believe that if a fee were to be agreed, he would definitely come to us. Now, I don't think James Maddison is the type of guy, or Arsenal are in the sort of situation where he would try and force a move. I don't think that would happen, because I think he'd be more than happy to stay at Leicester, but I think being at Arsenal will allow him to have more global exposure, because obviously when you have that global exposure, you can now get more brand deals, more money, and the fact that it's London, it just brings a better lifestyle for him. And I think all those different things could encourage someone like James Maddison to move. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think, just to build on your last point?
Arsenal are a club that, of course, they had the Invincibles. They played with such an amazing team at one point, but I think they're a team that have just got a little bit old on the stage. I just think, of course, looking at that Arsenal team at one point, if you compared it with Leicester City's, it was crazy. Like, you'd never think that would be comparing it in a different way now.
Yeah.
looking at the team. And I just think, to me, James Maddison, he's quite a professional player.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not like one of those Red Mahrez kind of players. And you could say there is an attitude problem. There might be, but they're just rumours, and I can't stress that enough. There's been parties, but he's a young lad. He's going to want to go to those parties and stuff like that. And it's you make mistakes, but I just don't think that, and I do agree with you that I don't think James Maddison would really need for a push. He would be losing out on European football.
Yeah.
Again, there's that exposure point, which is a true point. Let's see, they're getting more exposure, but I do agree with you that Arsenal are a club historically, they've got it. Leicester City historically, we don't have it. And we're quite a new team. It's like I like to compare ourselves to Atalanta of Serie A. They're talked about, but they're not talked about like Juventus, AC Milan, Inter Milan. Let's talk about AC Milan, who actually, let's talk about Napoli, who aren't doing the greatest of what they were at one point, but they're still talked about. I do think Napoli are. And I think that's the only problem that we have as a football club with James Maddison. You are right about the exposure. I do think it's a fair, kind of valid point that James Maddison would move to Arsenal if there was more kind of choices in it. Of course, if there was European football, but I just don't see James Maddison really needing this move at all. I think he will be happy at Arsenal overall. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think he'd mind staying at Leicester. You know, you have an exciting project over there to try and build, and I don't think he'd be mind staying there. But I want to move on to what Arsenal are haggling for a fee, because Arsenal do this a lot. I cannot stress enough how much we haggle over fees, and we do this. But it is understood that this intermediary that Arsenal have appointed first inquired from his Leicester City counterparts whether an offer of £50 million would bring Leicester to the negotiating table, and the response was no. I think you've said this as well, that the minimum Leicester will listen to is a 60 million bid. The minimum Leicester will negotiate for is a 60 million bid. And when Arsenal got 50 million turned down, we offered players, including Joe Willock and Ainsley Maitland-Niles, but Leicester firmly declined and said that we only want cash. What are your thoughts on that one?
Look, I fully agree with that there. Of course, Arsenal fans, they thought Ainsley Maitland-Niles as well. And Joe Willock, I think he's a good player. But when you compare them, put him into a Leicester team who are already growing to an extent where we're better with recruiting these players and getting them in a player deal, I think that kind of says something about us. And I do think it works out better for us if it's kind of cash. No way Arsenal are going to get away with an easy deal like that. Leicester City, you've got to remember, they're king of negotiations.
Yeah, definitely.
They sold for such a large amount. You saw what happened with Harry Maguire.
Ben Chilwell.
You got to remember James Maddison's got the English tax, and I don't think something that Arsenal fans have talked about is this Norwich kind of sell-on clause. I think that's a really, really big one about this cash deal. They want to be making more money, Leicester, but they're going to have to give some of the money to Norwich if they do make this sale. And yeah.
Yeah, look, I think look, Arsenal will haggle over the fee, and this is, I've talking to you about this off camera. I firmly do believe that Arsenal will take this one right up until the end of the window, whether that's deadline day or the last week of the window. And I've heard sources saying Arsenal definitely will, because I think when you look at the PR side of it, Arsenal did the same with Thomas Partey, and it just hyped up the fans to think, oh look, we've signed Partey on deadline day, let's forget everything that's happened. That's the sort of Arsenal, craziness we had last summer, and that fooled all the fans. But that's another trick that Arsenal might pull on us this time. We wait and wait and wait, and on deadline day, boom, James Maddison as announced as an Arsenal player, and then all the fans get all hyped and buzzed and forget everything what happened before. It will be a brilliant PR move, and everything around the move will be very big. Do you agree with that? Do you think Leicester will take this one right up until the end? Because the reports I'm reading are from a very credible Arsenal source close to Darren Robinson have suggested that Leicester haven't actually set a deadline for this move.
Look, my personal opinion is this now. I just don't see James Maddison. If this deal is going to happen, I see it's going to be a complicated one.
Definitely.
But it's not. I just don't see it, and I don't think Leicester would be stupid enough, of course, to take it down all to that level. If Leicester City do get that swap deal, maybe with Inter Milan, or if this happens, which is very unlikely, that Inter Milan deal, it looks like a fantasy more than anything. But if we go into a little bit more into this replacing kind of move, we don't really have a Cam who could kind of play in day in out, who's as creative as James Maddison. You got likes of Jesse Lingard, but it's going to be very, very complicated to get that deal done on its own. just think about that chain transfer. And I think, of course, Leicester City are gonna be looking. I know Brendan Rodgers hasn't really doubted it now. He's not really saying that he's not on for sale. There is still very much chance that James Maddison is on for sale, but I just don't see Leicester City at all letting this deal happen to the very last day. I don't think it will happen on deadline day. If it's going to happen, it's going to have to be a few weeks before. It's going to be a week before that at least. But yeah, I just think it's so complicated with that replacement. We're going
Yeah.
to have to replace it with a good one, with a good cam. Not forgetting that we still need to sign a centre back, which will be on Brendan Rodgers' kind of mind, as well as maybe a right winger. It's just going to be even more complicated, of course, with that Fofana injury for James Maddison to even kind of make a kind of big transfer, which is going to be probably one of the most complicated now. Sancho's got over the line, Messi's got over the line. For me, I think the only really one that's going to be more complicated than that is James Maddison.
Yeah, I think the same reporter suggested that it is not a matter of whether Arsenal have the money. Apparently, we do have the money to secure Madison for whether that's 65 or 70. It's the fact that we have other areas of the squad that we need to improve on, like right back, goalkeeper, like maybe another midfielder. We have many other positions that we still have to address, and the report suggests we don't want to spunk all that money onto one player, which is probably the reason we are trying to haggle with this so much. Now, obviously, Joe Willock's gone to Newcastle for 25 million, so we could potentially use that money in the next few weeks. But other than Jesse Lingard, who could you replace realistically Madison with? Because 70 million is a lot of money. You could do a lot with that money. What could you do? And do you think do you actually genuinely think with how things have gone that, just to finish off, that Arsenal will get Madison?
Look, I'll talk about replacement first now and with that. So my personal opinion is with cams, there's going to be I think a good cam will come in. I think the thing about Leicester City is their recruitment is
Very
another
good.
very good one. Very similar to Ajax, very similar to the likes of who's at Atalanta. And I just think looking at cam wise, Jesse Lingard, he's been the big one. But I think for me, we need to go, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me here, but I think it only makes sense to go all out, and I mean all out, for a player like Coutinho, a player like Bernardo Silva. I just think Silva,
Bernardo
he's a good
Silva's a
one.
shout.
I
Yeah.
think he would be a really, really good one at Leicester. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me here. He's going to be a hard one to bring in. He's going to have high wages. But I think if we're looking at a replacement, a suitable one, it has to be either Coutinho or Bernardo Silva.
I think
And yeah,
Yeah, I think, look, just before I let you finish off on whether Arsenal will actually get Madison, look, if Leicester do want to establish themselves as a big club, then you need to take on big wages. You need to take on these big name players like your Coutinho's, maybe like your Bernardo Silvas.
yeah, I do agree with that to an extent. Um, there's going to be a time, but I think that time's not yet. I just don't see us as this very, very big football club because a lot of people are gonna forget. Like some of these newer fans. I know I'm still a young guy,
Yeah,
but I still can't forget, and we can't forget. It was just a matter of years ago when we were in League One. We're not a team that are that big that we can spend that amount of cash. We're a team who are very ethical. We're a team who aren't going to really want to pay big wages because we're not a team that are paying big wages for some of our players. We're not doing this thing where we're paying one player 400k a week. I think something like Arsenal would do, and another player maybe 150. We always see this kind of average kind of wage thing, and I think it just ruins that ethical kind of part of Leicester City. It's a
yep,
family-run club. It's a family club. I think that's something that you don't have with those big clubs. I really do like supporting this kind of smaller
yep.
family club like Leicester.
Yeah, just to finish off, do you think Arsenal will get Madison, and when do you think it'll be?
I think for me, I just don't see it going over the line. I just see James Maddison, and the current reports that I'm getting and the sources that I'm getting is it's getting more complicated for Arsenal. It's even getting more kind of frustrating for Leicester's end. Just because James Maddison in this deal, he's obviously a big one. I think with the current situation at Leicester right now, they're looking for transfers. It's going to be even more complicated to happen now. Us as Leicester fans, it would be stupid to kind of take away this deal from happening. This deal could very much be on, and I'm not going to deny that. I think there's countless of different Arsenal sources that we can't forget that have confirmed that Leicester have been very much interested in James Maddison. Same with Fabrizio Romano. He's even stated that kind of Arteta is a big admirer of James Maddison. But I think if this deal is going to happen, it's going to be a complicated one. I think it's going to be another one of those Sancho deals, if it's ever going to happen, where it's going to take another season for these negotiations to occur, because it's not really like Leicester City need to sell any of their players. Brendan Rodgers highlighted that selling James Maddison is just not a needed thing. We're not a club like, let's say, Inter Milan, who need to get some players, Barcelona, Real Madrid, who needs to get more money in. I think that's the only problem. You can say Lazio as well. I think that's the only problem that Arsenal have with getting this deal done, is getting a player that a club doesn't really need to sell. He's a kind of strong man, but there's always going to be that thing where if there's an incredible bid, same with any other team in the world, if an incredible bid comes that you can't turn down, it's a business at the end of the day. You're looking to make profit from these players, and yeah, it could happen, but it's going to have to be a big deal. You need to get as much money as you can, and having Stan Kroenke as your owner isn't the greatest of advantages to get this deal done.
I do think that, Arsenal did spunk out 50 on Ben White, and it has to be suggested that Arsenal would have the money, but, Arsenal have to realise that Leicester aren't mugs, they don't have to sell Maddison. They aren't as small as a club as people keep making out to be. They can hold on to Maddison if they could. So Arsenal do have to move quickly on this one, but we'll wrap that up for today's video, and that is the latest exclusive interview with James Maddison. From a Leicester standpoint, what are they thinking on that one? If you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Let's try get Nandez one onto 2,000 subscribers. He's on the road to that one. Have you got any final words, mate?
Of course, guys, subscribe to Haitian90. We're going to try and do a few Premier League predictions. Hopefully Haitian90 is going to join me on for that. And yeah, guys, thanks for watching.
Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.